Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Last time we have been talking a lot about the Epson V550 and the Coolscan 8800F. Now this time, as promised, I will talk about other scanners as well and compare them with each other. The scanners that I want to present to you today are the Epson V800, the Nikon Coolscan V and the Nikon Super Coolscan 9000. The Nikons also have numbers like LS50, which stands for the model of Coolscan V, and LS9000, which is the Super Coolscan 9000. I should also mention that these are different scanners. So the V800 is Epson's flatbed scanner that sits just below the V850, which is a newer, refined version of it. The Nikon Coolscan V is a 35mm scanner, and the Super Coolscan 9000 is Nikon's top scanner for home users, which also is able to scan medium format. Let's start with the V800 of Epson. Here we have, I think this was Kodak Gold or Kodak Portra 160, and it was shot with a Bronica C2. This is already edited a bit, so let's go down and see the imported file. As you can see, there's not so much of a difference, especially if you do some basic adjustments, you get to this point quickly. So this is how it was scanned and converted already by the scanner using Epson's software that is included. And from here, a few more adjustments and we ended up with this version. Let's zoom in a bit. As you can see, we can see fine hair details, also a bit of structure in the snout that blends almost with the grain of the film. In the darker areas, we can also see some color noise introduced by the scanner itself. The focus was not on the eye, sadly, but a bit in front of it, but hey, that's what happens if you use manual focus. Nonetheless though, there's plenty enough detail in the eye that was captured by the scanner from the film. You can see here even reflections in the eye. This reflection should be me taking the picture. Overall, it was easy to use and gives plenty enough detail, not only on medium format, but also on 35mm film, albeit less than on the Nikon Scan 5, as we will see later. What I like about the V800 is that with the Epson software, it produces already nice colors from the beginning to work with. So the conversion is pretty accurate. Let's see some other example pictures. This, for example, started here, and with a few basic adjustments that I've then saved to this preset, we ended up here. The colors are vibrant and there's a lot of detail. You can see even the spider web. Again, here's also some noise introduced in the darker areas. Overall, again, the scanner with the software did a good job, and the same goes for this example picture. Let's switch and check out the pictures that I've taken using the Nikon scanners. This here was taken with the Super Coolscan 9000. It's the same frame that was being scanned with the V800. This right here is already a JPEG file. Let's see how it started. On import, we had this, so the colors were off still quite a bit. After some basic adjustments, we got to this point. Using contrast, lights, depths, whites, and blacks, and a few others, we ended up with this picture. I like it a lot, and it's more vivid to me than the other one, although I must say I didn't put as much work into the other picture. Let's zoom in on it. I would argue one can see better detail here in the snout, and the texture here is not only due to the grain, but really the texture of the nose. The hair seems a bit more detailed. The focus somehow seems to be even a bit more off in the eye, but that could be just a very subjective. In the dark, there's less color noise, or at least it's finer and less obvious. Overall, even though the software that I've used, which was VueScan, did not do the same good job as Epson software did, it was good enough to work with it from there. I also scanned it as a RAW file and worked with it. The colors are a bit different, and forgive me if I don't get the colors always super accurate, but I don't see red and green as well as you do. Let's zoom in on this picture. Okay, now even though I said that we have good detail in the other two pictures, if I were to compare it to this one, this stands out to me as even finer detail. Let's select the JPEG. Here's the RAW, and here's the JPEG. RAW, JPEG. As you can see here, it's less contrasty maybe, but the detail is much finer in the RAW file. Also, here in the eye, it seems that it's a bit more blurred, but with more detail still visible. And the color noise is reduced even further. So between these two scanners, the V800 and the Nikon, clearly the Nikon has the edge. But that was to be expected, since the Nikon at least is double the price than the V800. That being said, the V800 is an excellent choice for people who would spend up to around 500 to 600 euros. The Coolscan comes in at least 1,000, sometimes even double and triple that money. Next, we can check the 35mm scans and compare it to the performance of the Coolscan 9000 and the V800. Now this picture was scanned with the Nikon LS50, also called the Nikon Coolscan V. I like the colors that it reproduced a lot, and it was a very old film stock that was beyond its expiry date. Let's zoom in on this one. I think here we are more limited by the sharpness of the lens and where the focus was than to tell from the texture. Still, the grain is fine and even, and there's no color noise ongoing here, even in the dark. It seems as if the focus was here on this edge and that the back is a bit more blurry. The colors and the contrast I really enjoy in this picture. It was scanned as a JPEG. Let's compare it to how it looked when I first imported it. So it only took minor adjustments to get from here to there. Now that I've seen the name of my preset, I think the film that I've used was Precisa from Agfa. I've also have a version of this scan as a RAW. I stopped editing this one because I didn't like how it was behaving. Still, I can get more or less to the same result. Maybe like so. It's the same here. We have the same level of detail, and we don't see that much of a difference when compared to the JPEG. So here we have a smaller difference between the JPEG and the RAW file when it comes to how the film looks when we look at it up close compared to the LS9000. Here's another example of a 35mm film that I've scanned with the LS. This is how it looked when it was scanned. Already, this looks really fine, and it's just up to taste that I've added it to here so I can see more of the details in the shadow. This looks pretty realistic though, and I didn't have to fill around with the colors so much. With this one, the colors that the RAWs gave me were not really what I was looking for. Using VueScan, I therefore recommend using JPEG if you use the LS50 scanner. It's not impossible to get the colors right, but it's harder, especially if you also have impaired color vision. Another example how good the scanner actually is for 35mm film. This is zoomed in 100%. The detail is there, and it's just to the film. Another picture. Man, I love the Precisa film. It really gives nice colors. It's a positive film. Still, the colors need to be adjusted, and the scanner does a good job at that. Now let's compare a 35mm shot between the LS9000 and the LS50 scanner. This was imported as a DNG and needed color conversion. This is what I got using just Lightroom to convert it and to adjust colors. This one was scanned with the LS50 scanner. This one was scanned with the Nikon LS50 scanner. This also was imported as a DNG that needed color conversion. Using only Lightroom, this is what I got. It's hard to match these two to the same exact color and brightness levels because the raw material is a bit different. But for the sake of better comparability, let's just use the same presets and same settings on both of them. Since I like this one better, I would just copy the settings of this picture and apply it to the other. Great, now we have better comparability. I notice though that this picture is a bit cooler, so we'll cool down the other one. Better. Also, the contrast should be a bit higher. I think now we are at the point where we can compare both of them. Let's zoom in. The level of detail in both is very good. You can see even the structure and texture of the house on the opposite side in this reflection. The writing on the house, the writing on the building is also readable and sharp. It appears a bit softer on the LS9000, but at the same time the LS9000 delivers structural information here, whereas I found this to be a bit more blurry. Therefore, I think what happened here is that just the focus of the scanner itself on the film was a bit on a different point. If you ask me, I found that the LS50 did a fantastic job and was a bit more on point with the focusing on the film. Nonetheless, the level of detail and color reproduction that you get out of the LS9000 was on par with the LS50. As said, I think just the focus of the scanner itself was not on point with the 35mm frame here. Comparing now the V550 scan that I've done last time, I see that the detail of those two scanners, the Nikon Coolscan LS50 and LS9000, is just on another level. The reading here, we can see clearly that there is writing on this building, but it's not as readable as in the other two pictures. The detail in the sky is basically blown out. We can get back a bit if we lower the exposure. But this here, for example, almost no structural information here. The V550 is not suitable for scanning 35mm frames. I sadly have no 35mm scan to show you from the V800 right now, but I will try to get some, as I have the V800 scanner right now here again to test it. Let's do some ranking now, but before that, let's talk about software. For scanning with the Epson scanners, I've primarily used the Epson included software as it's quick and easy. Silverfast comes with some of the scanners, but I found it a bit overloaded, although powerful. Epson does a fantastic job at converting the colors from negative film on its own already. VueScan, on the other hand, I was not so happy with the colors that it gave me sometimes. Sometimes it hit it on the spot. Especially with the JPEGs, it was working better. In this case, I wasn't happy with the colors it gave me, but you got there, so it's fine. It's relatively cheap and also quite intuitive to use, although you have advanced settings that might be a bit redundant at times or just confusing. There's excellent online documentation and FAQs. What I wanted to point out though is that the VueScan software does seem to have a few problems with the LS9000 scanner, or vice versa. Let me show you what I mean. Right here we can see pictures cleared up, but if we have an even surface, like in this picture, we can see some banding that appears. You can see lines all across the 35mm frame here. As far as I've read, people reported that this is an issue if you use the LS9000 scanner with the VueScan software, and it would not appear using Nikon's own software. Sadly though, Nikon recently decided to take down this software from their homepage, and you can no longer download it. It was known that it was not easy to install under Windows 11, yet it was possible with some workarounds. Still, now that I've taken it down completely, it's not even possible to download it anymore, and therefore I cannot compare it. If any one of you sees this video and has the software and could provide it to me, I would highly welcome you texting me. You can get rid of these. For example, since it's only obvious in even colors and surfaces, like the sky, we can filter for the sky and then just smoothen out the sky. Now almost all of the banding is gone. At the same time though, the character of the film and its grain is gone. Depending on your usage or your preference, you have to choose between banding and grain. You could also artificially reintroduce grain though. As you can see now, there's artificial grain. But it's not the same, of course, as if you were to see the original grain of the film. It's less obvious in the JPEGs though. You can still see the banding, but it's softer than in the raw file. This is due to the processing that the scanner already does to the picture when it was being scanned, as it also tries to reduce noise and therefore flattens the surface, especially on uneven areas. Conclusion. Let's rank our scanners. While ranking the scanners, I want to point out that I can recommend all of the scanners for you for your specific use cases and budgets, so it always depends on that. First, you have to know what do I want with the scanner, and second, how much do I want to spend on it. So let's start with the Canon Coolscan 8800F. This is a very basic scanner. It gets the job done, especially if you want to scan bigger film format. For 35mm, it's only usable if you don't want to have a big print of your film and, for example, just share it on WhatsApp or Instagram, or to preserve it just for yourself, or maybe printing some pictures in 10 by 15 centimeters. Next up, Epson V850. With also just a bit more pricier than the 8800F, this scanner delivers solid results for 35 and medium format film. Of course, it's just a bit better at both than the 8800F, and it's also just a bit more expensive. Therefore, these two can be recommended for a low budget if you want to emphasize more on the quality than on the price. Next up would be the V800. It's still cheaper than Epson's V850. Heck, it's even cheaper than the V750 at times, as I found one for 500. I can recommend this scanner for someone who wants to scan 35mm and medium format film, and at the same time doesn't want to pay a premium price tag, such as for the Nikon Coolscan 9000. Next would be the Nikon Coolscan LS50, also called the Nikon Coolscan 5. The Nikon Coolscan 5 for me sits above the V800, but only because it exceeds its quality for 35mm and doesn't come at a much higher cost. Its size also is very small, so it fits even on a small desk. As you've seen, it's even comparable with the Nikon Coolscan LS9000 when it comes to 35mm film. It works perfectly well with the VueScan software. On top of all that sits for me the LS9000, as it's just the best for all and comes with a price tag that's still attractive for many people. Even though its cost of around 1,000 up to 3,000 euros, this scanner delivers the best quality for consumer grade scanners. If you're not willing to pay this amount of money, you might as well send your film to a professional scanning service. But over time, this scanner is an investment that will pay off if you shoot a lot of film. I hope you enjoyed my video so far. I can only repeat what I have said so far. All these scanners I can recommend, but you have always to be clear what is your use case and how much are you willing. If you're interested in more photography related content, you can subscribe to this channel. For any comments, for any questions or recommendations, please use the comment section and I will read and reply. Thank you.